The Dirlewanger Brigade was led by convicted criminal Oskar Dirlewanger. This Axis unit gained a reputation for its countless atrocities in Eastern Europe. Why was this unit set up and how did they operate is what you will learn in this video about the infamous Dirlewanger Brigade. Good to have you back on the channel. My name is Stefan. I'm a Dutch history teacher and I love to uncover these niche historical topics. And in this video we're going to talk about one of the Third Reich's most notorious units, the Dirlewanger Brigade. If you find this content interesting, consider subscribing, hit that notification bell. You can support me via Patreon, PayPal, via Super Thanks, or you can buy me a coffee. Who was Oskar Dirlewanger? He was born in Würzburg, Germany on the 26th of September 1895. He finished high school in 1913 and he would later see action during the First World War. He was not a nice man, to put it mildly. He was an alcoholic and drug addict, prone to violence. He had fought in the German right-wing militias after the First World War and spent the early 1920s tormenting communists and writing a doctoral dissertation on planned economics. He joined the Nazi Party in 1923, but jeopardized his political future by traffic accidents and sexual liaisons with an underage girl. Now this happened in 1934, he was expelled from the party, he was later released, but soon rearrested for assault. He was sent to a concentration camp in Welsheim. He contacted an old World War I comrade, Gottlob Berger, now a high-ranking SS official. Berger used his influence to send him to Spain, and there Dirlewanger fought in the Condor Legion, a German unit which fought in the Spanish Civil War. He returned to Germany in 1939 and he joined the General SS, the Allgemeine SS, with the rank of SS Untersturmführer. This branch provided, among other things, the administration of the SS. It was originally established to distinguish between the Waffen-SS and the SS Totenkopfverbände. Mid-1940, Berger arranged Dirlewanger to train and command a unit of convicted poachers. Now the idea behind this unit was that these poachers were skilled and experienced hunters and could therefore also hunt down partisans in Eastern Europe. Some Nazi leaders later romanticized these men, seeing them as pure primitive German types resisting the tyranny of the law. Now throughout the Second World War the unit went by different names. From September 1940 it was known as the SS Sonderbataillon Dirlewanger. From May 1943 known as the SS Sonderregiment Dirlewanger. From December 1944 known as the SS Sturmbrigade Dirlewanger. And from February 1945 it was redesignated as the 36th Waffen-Grenadier-Division der SS. The men wore German uniforms and had German weaponry. Here I found a photo of their distinct color patch, 2 cross rifles below a steel grenade. Their insignia involved 2 cross steel grenades. I did find a photo of presumably Dirlewanger men wearing masks. On the internet I read that this was a German sniper mask. So just because Dirlewanger used it doesn't make it a Dirlewanger thing. In September 1940 the unit got equipment from the SS Totenkopfverbände, the death heads units that were responsible for administering the concentration and extermination camps of the Third Reich. It had around 300 men at that moment. In October 1940 they were sent to occupied Poland for security tasks. Soon, reports of their appalling behavior, we're talking about assault, looting and murder, began to surface. Even high SS officials began to ask questions and raise their concerns. And yes, that does say a lot, that even the SS is disgusted by your actions. In January 1942, they were sent to occupied Belarus, where they had to fight against the Soviet partisans. They started to recruit in the area, cementing their reputation for barbarity. In August 1942, the unit was expanded to 2 battalions. Dirlewanger himself was decorated for bravery in May and October that year. Historian Timothy Snyder wrote the following about the cycle of violence that developed in Eastern Europe. By late 1942, German soldiers were horribly fatigued, conscious of defeat, relieved of normal legal obligations to civilians and under orders to treat partisans with extreme brutality. When assigned to anti-partisan duty, soldiers faced the anxiety of fighting a foe who could appear and disappear at any time, and who knew the land as the soldiers did not. Wehrmacht troops were now cooperating with the police and the SS, whose main task for some time had been the mass murder of civilians, above all Jews. All knew that they were supposed to exterminate the partisans. In these circumstances, the death toll among civilians was bound to be terribly high, regardless of the particulars of German tactics. Tens of thousands of Belarusian civilians were killed by the Dirlewanger Brigade. I get to their methods later. In January 1943, they received color patches. Normally forbidden for penal units, all convicted felons were allowed to join the unit now. Disorderliness extended to shooting incidents between Russian and Lithuanian members of the unit. Discipline was enforced with brute force. They did suffer casualties during their anti-partisan operation. 300 men of the unit fell between February and August 1943. In November and December 1943, they served at the front line under Army Group Center, and many more men fell. The unit was reduced to 260 men. In the beginning of 1944, the unit was rebuilt with convicts from German military prisons. By February, they had around 1,200 men, and in April another 800 were added. They fought the partisans that spring and were involved in rearguard fighting as the German units retreated through Poland after they had executed Operation Bagration. In August 1944, they helped crushing the Warsaw Uprising. This was a resistance operation led by the Polish Home Army against German occupation. The Polish uprising aimed to liberate Warsaw before the advancing Soviet forces could take control. Despite early successes, the poorly equipped Polish resistance faced overwhelming German firepower. The city was destroyed and much of its population killed. The Dirlewanger Brigade also went in. Together with the equally notorious Kamiński Brigade, also known as the SSRONA, they murdered, looted, pillaged and tortured their way to the city's districts. Now, unlike Kamiński, who was executed by the Germans, Dirlewanger received the Knight's Cross. In late August 1944, an uprising broke out in Slovakia. The Soviet air forces had dropped partisans in the east of Slovakia to organize resistance against the Slovak collaborationist authorities. Slovak communists and other sympathizers joined them. They committed acts of sabotage. The Slovak police force was inadequate to stop this resistance, and thus martial law was declared, but in reality it existed only on paper. Towards the end of the month, German forces entered the country and the Slovak army revolted. 60,000 men of the Slovak army managed to keep the Germans at bay for 2 months. Eventually, the Germans had the upper hand and they crushed the revolt and occupied the country. It led to murderous consequences. Villages suspected of collaboration with the insurgent army, that was by now called the Czechoslovak army in Slovakia, were destroyed and many people were killed. And not only those who actively took part in the uprising, also those who were suspected of collaboration. In October, the Dirlewanger Brigade entered Slovakia. Now, en route, they had suffered casualties because of an air attack. They fought against the Slovak resistance fighters, initially successful, but do notice that they also suffered desertions. Towards the end of the year, permission was given to build the unit to brigade level, hence the name Dirlewanger Brigade, with further drafting criminals. In January 1945, they were stationed in Hungary and the unit was officially redesignated as the 36th Waffen-Grenadier-Division der SS. Interesting enough, in post-war trials, Gottlob Berger and Bach-Zelewski both denied the unit was a part of the Waffen-SS, yet Himmler already in August 1944 identified them as a Waffen-SS penal unit. In reality, the unit never reached divisional strength. Now that month, Dirlewanger returned to Germany for hospital treatment and he was replaced by SS Brigadeführer Fritz Schmedes. When the Soviets launched their spring offensive in April 1945, the unit quickly crumbled as many men fell in battle or deserted. They were encircled in the Halba pocket. At the end of the month, some soldiers were captured by the Red Army near Berlin and executed. A few surrendered to US troops. What happened to Dirlewanger is the subject of rumors. I get to that later. But first let's discuss their crimes. They committed numerous atrocities against Polish, Belarusian and Slovak civilians. In Belarus, Dirlewanger and his men mass executed civilians who lived in what they saw as the wrong place. An estimated 30,000 Belarusians had been murdered by the men of Dirlewanger. Dirlewanger's preferred method was to herd the population in a huge barn and then set it on fire, and those who tried to escape were mowed down with machine guns. If you've ever seen the 1985 Soviet movie Come and See, E.D.E. Smatry, a scene is filmed in which this is portrayed. In total, they killed 30,000 Belarusian civilians. For example, during Operation Swamp Fever in September 1942, the men killed 8,350 Jews still living alive in the ghetto in Baranovichi and proceeded to kill hundreds of bandits and bandit suspects. Now, they were stationed in Poland before going to Belarus and they committed numerous crimes over there, but they later came back to Poland to help crushing the Warsaw Uprising, and there they went all out. Heinz Reinhardt, the SS and police chief of the Warthegau, received the following order from Himmler. All Polish combatants were to be shot. All Polish non-combatants, including women and children, were also to be shot, and the city itself was to be razed to the ground. And thus the men of the Dirlewanger Brigade, together with the men of the SS RONA and Azeri collaborators in German uniform, went into the city and unleashed a wave of terrible, appalling violence against Polish civilians. Most numerous is what happened in the west central Wola neighborhood. Collectively known as the Wola Massacre, 40 to 50,000 Poles were killed in the first half of August 1944. The men of the Dirlewanger Brigade burned down 3 hospitals with patients inside. At one hospital, wounded Germans who were being treated by Polish doctors and nurses asked that no harm come to the Poles. This was not to be. The men of the Dirlewanger Brigade killed the Polish wounded. They brought the nurses back to the camp that evening, as was the custom. Each night selected women would be whipped by officers and then ganged before being murdered. This evening was unusual, even by those standards. To the accompaniment of flute music, the men raised a gallows and then hanged the doctor and the naked nurses. This is partially being portrayed in a 2014 Polish movie called Warsaw 44 or Miasto 44. If you've seen it, let me know what you think of this movie. I found it kind of a weird movie, but it was interesting to watch. In another instance, these so-called Black Hunters, they captured a daycare facility. They killed all the children inside. In order to save bullets, they used the rifle butts and bayonets. It is absolutely appalling and practically undescribable. Surprisingly, there's not that many photos I could find about the Dirlewanger Brigade. On this rare photo, you see German Waffen-SS POWs with in the middle a member of the Dirlewanger Brigade. He can be recognized by his collar patch. Many of the men of the Dirlewanger Brigade got away unpunished. Who did not get away unscathed was Dirlewanger himself. He was arrested by French forces and guarded by Polish soldiers. And after they found out who he was beaten to death. What exactly happened is not certain, but here is a testimony of a Luftwaffe lieutenant who is said to have witnessed the death of Dirlewanger and one of his comrades named Minch. In the night of June 4th to 5th, 1945, Minch and Dirlewanger were twice taken out of their cells and beaten in the manner described. After being brought back to the cell for the 3rd time, they were incapable of speaking or getting up due to their injuries. A little while later, the guards came back in the cell and ordered them again to get up and go with them. Neither Minch nor Dirlewanger was able to do so. So the guards hit them in the face with their rifle butts until their faces were open wounds. I think they died of the injuries they received during their beatings. So, some kind of justice? I don't know. Leave your insights below the video in the comment section. If you want to learn about other notorious Third Reich units, I got here a video about the infamous SS RONA. And did you know that there was a notorious Waffen-SS unit in the Balkans that went by the name of the SS Prinz Eugen? Click right here. Thank you so much for watching. See you later.